All right, folks. Welcome to Paranormal Roundtable. I'm your host, Josh Turner, and this is PRT, which is short for Paranormal Roundtable. I know this is an unusual time for you guys. This is not the normal time that we come on the air. And so we're about a couple hours early compared to what we usually do. Thursday is not our night either. It's not a normal night. But my guest isn't a normal guest, so I had to figure it out. And I think we did. So without further ado, I want to get this started because he's been waiting, and Austin traffic is rough, and trying to get this going at 5 o'clock is a whole nother ball game. So let's welcome our guest. Let's welcome Ron Morehead to the studio. And let me get my headphones on. Hope everybody enjoyed last night's show. Sorry for the rant at the end. Well, I'm not sorry. I'm, actually got quite a few people that enjoyed it. A lot of messages about it. I will go to Rumble, and we can talk about the political stuff on Rumble. I don't want this to be a political show, and so I apologize last night for turning it into a political show because, but I just see so much misinformation going back and forth about this whole thing, and the Zelensky thing just got, it just, so I had to say something. I was just like, no, dude, there's just people that are just not telling the truth, like always, and they're acting crazy. And so I had to say something, and I'm sorry if you're on that other side and you don't know which restroom to use. Well, sorry, it happens. Not to me, because I know who I am. I know what gender I am. But to people who can't figure things out. And these people vote. That's the problem. So anyways, that happened last night. 2 hours was just the story encounter that happened to Arlene. And then, of course, there was an hour there. So if you're easily offended, if the sound of a gun makes you have PTSD or run for the hills, and have nightmares, then please don't listen to that third hour. Simple as that. Okay? That's all you got to do, and you'll save yourself from despair or whatever. All right, so let me bring on my guest tonight. All right. Ron, what's going on, Ron? How are you doing?
Well, hello. I guess I'm abnormal. This is the normal. I'm abnormal.
No, you're actually, you're more of like the normal than we are, because we're like staying up late at night and doing all this crazy stuff, and you're on a normal schedule like a normal person. So,
well, good to see you. Thanks for having me on. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah. Is that your study there? I can hear you great. You can hear me?
Yeah, this is, well, yeah, this is where I have my little everything.
Yeah. That's a pretty neat map back there too. That's pretty cool. So Ron Morehead, folks. So we recorded yesterday, but that won't be out. It won't be out this coming week. It'll be out the following week. And so Ron, we talked about all kinds of stuff. We
why isn't he showing up on screen on the YouTube video?
It's not showing up.
No.
Let me see. Let me take a look here. Hang on one second. It's not showing you. We can see you.
What is the deal here?
We got to figure this out. Let me look at it through my phone. Now it's showing me, but it's not showing. It's not showing Ron.
I see me. And you.
Yeah, I see you too.
Yeah, we see you on our end through StreamYard, Ron, but for some reason it's not popping up on the YouTube video. Let's see.
Oh, what a time for technical difficulties.
Okay, let me try removing and then adding it back. Hang on one second.
All right.
Let me try removing Wolf.
There it is.
There we go.
There we go. Now we're cooking.
Okay. Well,
now it's just Ron. No, it's
all right. There we go. Okay.
Now it's both of us again.
I don't know why StreamYard did that.
If you have to pick one, though, pick put Ron on there because he's the guest. They know what I look like. I don't
Yeah.
need to. A lot of people know Ron looks like too, but he's the guest. So Ron, we had talked yesterday, and you were at my second conference. And one of the things that I wanted to talk about today, and we've talked about so many different, and you've been interviewed so many different times, and I want to get into something that we were talking about a bit yesterday, if that's okay. You were on our panel
Sure.
for the alien abduction UFOs, and you volunteered to be on that panel. And I thought that was quite interesting because your wheelhouse, when people think of you, they think of you as the Sierra Sounds. They think of Bigfoot, obviously. And you were telling us yesterday, and of course that won't come out for a couple of weeks. But we had never recorded before. You'd only been on the show one time, before, and that was on a live stream, on a basic live stream. And so we got into some things, but we really talked about a lot of different things yesterday, and I would like to get back into that. But I want to ask you a question. What prompted you to want to be on the panel with the alien abduction UFO phenomenon?
I think it was the guys waiting for me to come up.
Yeah, because I was like, I didn't know like 100% for sure who all was going to be on it or who was going to volunteer for it. But at the conference, it was technically a Dogman PRT conference. But of course, we had a lot of different people there from all different. We had Jesus Payan, and there was you. There were all these different people from the UFO community. Daniel Jones was there. Of course, Nick Redfern. There was just a whole bunch of people who their wheelhouse. Of course, Christopher Jordan too, and it's the UFO phenomenon, And so, you were on that panel, and of course, we started talking. There were some things that were said by you, and you and I have talked in private many times, but about your belief and what it has to do with Bigfoot, and from what you have told me before is that we were basically seeded here, right, by another race of beings. A lot of people believe that. I'm one of those people that I'm leaning toward that, and that Bigfoot comes in many different forms. But oftentimes there's UFO activity, and of course there's paranormal activity around these creatures. And we were talking about that yesterday when we were recording. But would you like to expound upon that when we're talking about this? I guess an elusive creature, but lots of people see it.
Well, it started for me when I and these other guys encountered these things up in the Sierra Mountains of California. And we were thinking they're just a flesh and blood ape that hadn't been identified yet, but they were doing some very unusual things, or some very unusual things were happening while we were there. And Al Berry, the investigative reporter we took in, said he had classical science training. He's a master's in science. And he said, if you talk about this strange stuff up here, no one's going to listen to you. So we didn't for a long time, but that got me into quantum science, because he said, if you're going to talk about it, make sure you stay with science. So, of course, he was talking about classical science, like so many people are today. That's in the three-dimensional environment that we all live in, and we have to abide. We live by those rules. If you can't see it, feel it, or touch it, or smell it, or measure it, it probably doesn't exist. Well, that's wrong. There's so many other things out there, and what got me into quantum science is trying to figure out the enigmas associated with Bigfoot. But that took me clear around the circle, because I was raised religiously, and I thought everything was answerable in the Bible, which I've been studying quite a bit, and I figured I had to get beyond that, because I found out there was some mistakes in it that just didn't add up, and how our God could do genocide over a whole nation, and just how things could happen. It's listed in the Old Testament, but I sort of got way back into the Mesopotamia. I think we talked about that last night. The Mesopotamian things went on there. The Sumerian tablets.
Sumerian tablets, yeah.
Yeah, the cuneiform tablets, and those are found. They don't have to have faith to see those. It's just they're here. You can interpret them or read them. But anyway, you find out that the story that's covered in about 2-3 chapters in Genesis, or it takes hundreds of thousands of years really in the cuneiform text. And you find the king's list, and you find about the fallen ones, or I'd say fallen ones. In the Bible, it says they're fallen angels, that took on human form, or started inbreeding with human women. So anyway, it's convoluted to start off in the middle of something like this. that's where I went with it, and that's what got me into UFOs, because I had seen a UFO up there where we were at camp when all this Bigfoot stuff was going on, and I knew there was strange stuff that went on, and if there's a scientific answer to it, I want to find it. So that's what led me into understanding Einstein a little better, and quantum physics, Tesla, Bohr, Schrödinger, those people that are into theoretical physics. And you find that there's a lot more going on than what we're seeing, feeling, touching, and measuring. I think what really got me into it, even when I was a little boy, I asked, how far is it to the end of the universe? What's on the other side of it? Well, how do you answer that? How do you answer that question? You don't answer that question, because there's no way you can conceive something out there like that. You just have to believe it. There couldn't be an end to it. There couldn't be. So anyway, Tesla said what one man calls God, no one calls the laws of physics. And you got Dr. Edgar Mitchell said, takes classical and quantum sciences together to have clear perception. So I thought, well, I better learn what this is all about. So I started learning quantum physics probably 15 years ago. And you bring it up to academia, and they don't want to get into that, to regular academia. You have to get into a physicist, and they will tell you. I've seen top physicists at UCLA one time. And I said, what do you think about it? He said, well, he looked at me and said, nothing's real. That kind of made me wonder a little bit. What do you mean nothing's real? I can touch him, I can touch me, I can touch, that's real. Well, it's only real to our perception. And we perceive things with our eyes, anyway, I did all this in my other book, but I'm not even sure I'm answering your question now.
Doesn't matter. It's all part of it. One of the things that you've said to me in private conversation, probably at the conference too, I remember we talked some there, and then of course you gave your speech, and then you were on the panels, and we've talked probably the last time we talked on the show, and of course last night when we were doing the recording, which is going to come out. And I wanted it, folks, the reason I wanted Ron's to record, and me and Ron had talked about this, and the live stream, is because a lot of times it's two different audiences. This is not our normal time slot. So we're at like about 150 something people right here, but this will be seen by a lot of people because this isn't our normal time slot. But I guarantee you this will be seen by thousands of people. But the audiences, they overlap to a degree, but a lot of the people that just watch or listen to the podcast, they don't watch the live stream. So you're talking about thousands of people who are, either podcast or YouTube. So I thought Ron, it was somebody that was important to have his message and his information on both the podcast and the YouTube. So that's why we're doing it this way. Now, of course, the show will come out. If you're just a tuber, it'll be out, like I said, not next week, but the week after. Bless you. And then, so you'll be able to hear that too. And we go in depth on a lot of different subjects, pertaining to this. But one of the things I found interesting when we were talking yesterday, and I thought it was important to bring up today, is when people, it seems like, and you had an answer for this, and I said, why is it that sometimes it seems like people who are just going about their mundane day, run into or have happened what happened to you and your colleagues out there in the Sierra Nevadas. It was a simple camping trip, right? And you were hunting, but you weren't looking for Bigfoot. You had that wasn't even on your radar. Like, it didn't even register. But then you have these people who go out into the bush, and they're out there for 30 years and they don't see hide nor hair of anything. I mean, nothing. Maybe some habitation that's been abandoned or something, but it's nothing like, and so here you go out there, and then all of a sudden you know, like there's this, you have these recordings, you know, you start going back, of course, because you catch these sounds, and you and your colleagues you're just business guys, and you're just out there, and all of a sudden now you're one of the most renowned Bigfoot researchers, and of course, you know, your books lay it out there for everybody. The Quantum Bigfoot. You have a new one. You want to announce the new one that just came out too?
Yeah, it's Bigfoot Unveiled,
Hmm.
and it
Yeah,
kind
and
of follows up with the Quantum Bigfoot. And
yeah,
my first book was Voices in the Wilderness, and that's my chronicle for doing this. And that comes with the download of the sounds. When I get to the context of sounds, you can hear the sound I'm talking about and how it came about and what was going on at the time.
hmm,
So that's in a link in the book that you can look into and hear about 26 sound bites.
and what are your
Uh,
thoughts, Ron, on like what we talked about? How can it be that somebody can wander out in the woods, in places where these things have been seen and heard multiple times, and they don't find anything? Like there's never
yeah,
anything, but you go out there on a business trip in 1971. Was it 71?
71, but let me adjust that a little bit. I was invited up there by one of the guys that wouldn't go back. All the guys in the group, 5 of them. I made 6 when I got in. They were all my friends. They were the hunters. At that time, I hadn't been a hunter. They'd been going to
Yeah.
that camp of the Joss brothers since 1958. So I went up there because one of the guys got scared off. He wouldn't go back and, by himself anyway. So wives were worried. The guys were day late. On and on, but I've told the story many times. It just that's how I got involved. But yeah, we were all business guys. We were very level-headed. Well, I say that, but I got my hat on now, so that's, you don't know if it's level or not. I pop up with these would-be jokes every once in a while. But
I
there, I
like
got
it.
a smile out of you, Josh. I like to
I
smile
like your
better.
hat. It was good.
Well, it's if I didn't have the hat on, no one know what it was, probably. Really, the
Yeah.
only thing I do nowadays is podcasts like this. I do a conference every once in a while now, but kind of slowed down on those this year. Well, I took another one today. Uh, but yeah, why it happens, I think I told you, science, quantum science is everything, most minute level is energy and frequency, vibration.
Hmm.
Energy, we all are, and everything's energy. Everything is. Burn this desk, it's going to turn into another form. And when this biological body dies of ours, then the ethereal body continues on. That's what can't die. It's who you really are. Is we're a spirit inhabiting a body. We're not a body inhabiting a spirit. It kind of goes that way, in my opinion. But I think it's all about vibration. If your head and your vibration is right, and they're out there, and they're not everywhere, they will interact with you. So that's where I think we went last night. Is I think some guys are out there with a gun or with trying to trick them with some kind of trap or something, and they see through that because they have a way of seeing your vibration and what it's up to. And that's what I think is the difference. Right? It's who you are as a person, what you're thinking, how you're being, what's going to determine if these things interact with you. Or if you're going out there in fear, and they play on fear, so they will toy with you. I think everybody's got to learn to control their fear. That's your enemy. It's embodied.
Yeah.
We really have nothing to be afraid of. If you're a Christian like I am, and you feel like your ethereal body's going to transfer to something else, you shouldn't have any fear. Really, nothing can hurt you. So that nothing's going to hurt me. Not my real me. My body can get shot up, all that
Yeah.
stuff, but nothing's going to hurt me. And I think the way I mentioned it, even last night, I'll say it again, is we have to raise our personal vibrational frequency. And then you do that, through all that frequency, you do that through meditation, learning how to get coherence with your whole body through meditation. And think about good things, talk about good things. If you see something that's bad, say what you want it to be good. Like if you see a bad person doing a bad thing, say, I wish so-and-so was da-da-da-da-da, I'm better. Say what you want, what you don't want. That also forms the image, and it shoots the energy towards that direction of higher vibration.
Yeah.
That Did that work out okay? Did I say that right?
It's your show. Well, the thing is, though, I mean, okay, so you, like me, you started out, and this, like I've said before on the show many times, folks, I really believe this is the case. Like, I've never really met anybody um of any substance. I think I know one guy who switched it, whatever, but he never believed anyway. I'm talking about people who really believe, who've had experiences like you have, like I have, you with Bigfoot and me with Dogman, but they don't, you don't see that. And Anthony, you know as well as I do, how many times have we had people tell us that they started out as flesh and blood and then they flip eventually, you know.
Oh, over and over and over.
It just happens over and over and over again. We
Yeah,
don't,
but the opposite, like you said, the opposite is never true.
it's never the case. It's never the case. And you're no different with that, Ron. Like you've,
Same thing.
you know,
Yeah.
yeah. How long were you believing that, though, Ron, before you decided that, hey, man, something is really weird here?
Well, it kind of grew. It wasn't like it snapped overnight. I had to, you know, it's just crazy things were happening up there. It was beyond classical science's reasoning. But that's all we're all framed in, is that mental thing that we got on our shoulders that have been conditioned. So I was still, we were all looking for the ape, you know, trying to find the ape in the woods. You know, there's a family up there. All we could find is their tracks. And we did get to report them. But they were coming real close to our shelter. And I interacted with them one time when they were outside. When we were outside the shelter, they started making their sounds. So that night I got recorded. Set report out of my saddlebag and turned it on. I got that. I got my second CDs made with that one. I narrated and told my story in that. And so, you know, this went on from 71 through 76, close-up stuff. But after that, it seemed to die off into just a track here and there. You know, you might see a sign or something weird happen, but none of the posts and chatter that we were recording in 71, 72, and all the way into 74. Just, it's quite an adventure. And, I'm still on it. That's what I'm all about nowadays. I retired from business a long time ago. I just do this now. I like it because I feel like I got a message. I delved deep into it, like I think you have too, Josh. You find out what we're really all about as humans, why we're here, what's our purpose. And you find out more about life in general. We're all here for an experience. And I think that experience up there that happened to me and the other guys has put a mark on us that we can't shake. I can't shake anyway. I've been all over the world, as you know, looking at different things and trying to figure different things out. And you see these megalithic structures down in South America where I've been a few times. And, you know, there's no answer for that except the end or something way out there that's got more advanced technology than we have. And once you see that with your own eyes, you know, you realize that something's been here that's made all that stuff. And what do you do with that? You know, you can't figure out, nobody can figure out how they did it today, how they put those boulders together like a jigsaw puzzle with no mortar in it, nothing like that, and way up high, and 13,000-foot mountain, they got this stuff. And you see that with your own eyes. I've flown over the Nazca lines. I've been in Peru and Bolivia and those places. And just amazing. I've been into Yucatan quite a bit, looking at the Mayan structures down there, and just what they do and how they did it is a little bit beyond us. The boulders, some of them weigh several tons, you know, it's like the one in Egypt. Well, anyway, you see that with your own eyes, and you've got to believe something else is out there that you don't know about. And then you got to look and start searching and searching. And I started searching, but I wanted to search through ancient texts. And that's what, like I say, got me into Mesopotamia and the Sumerian tablets and the Anunnaki, actually. Because you find out where it let us make man in our image. Well, the Anunnaki were messing with the genome of troglodytes. I believe different species on this planet and creating hybrids. And I think some of these Bigfoot creatures, they're not all the same, by the way, in my opinion. They were made a long time, eons before Homo sapiens were here. Once Homo sapiens came here, they were made us a pretty good image. Well, an image of something very high frequential. Is that a good word?
Yeah.
Frequential beings.
Yeah.
But,
Well,
I know that. Go ahead.
go ahead. No.
Well, I got a chapter in my latest book about
Mm-hmm.
manifestation code 3, 6, and 9 at Tesla's manifestation. If you can find the secret of 3, 6, and 9, you know the secrets of the universe.
Yeah. That's what he said.
Well, I think I pinned it down to something very simple. And all these people go through this mathematical stuff and talk through whatever which way, but I've seen that. But nothing really gelled to me until it just dawned on me when I was searching all this stuff. We have to be in a three-dimensional environment to ever experience and do what we're doing, to ever have the experiences we're having, and to be able to respond to them. Responding to them properly is what's important, not the experience itself, but how you respond to them. And I truly believe that with everything I've got. I believe that. You can't be a victim for nothing. You got to accept everything that happens to you. It's okay because you were supposed to experience that. But responding to it properly is what's important, with love and compassion. And I really, that's what I think I'm all about nowadays, is being programs like this, and talk about this in conferences, is how we're supposed to, as human beings, and we're supposed to know how to get out of this third dimensional environment. Because if you don't learn what you're supposed to learn here, you're gonna have to repeat it somewhere,
That's
somehow.
Right. Mm-hmm.
I wasn't raised that way. I wasn't raised to believe in multiple embodiments, but I do now. It just makes sense and it fits. It fits with my theory. Let's put it that way. But I think we can go to the sixth. That's after we pass from this embodiment. Our ethereal being will go to the sixth dimension, and that's where you understand the universe and you can do things, you can manipulate things. I believe that the fourth dimension of time is where you go as soon as you die.
Mm-hmm.
Most people, but that's where you have to get placed, where you're going to come back and go to this body because you didn't get to experience something that you didn't, or you got to experience, but you didn't respond to it properly. So you got to come back and do it in somewhere else that gives you that opportunity. And you do that over and over and over until you can all of a sudden get into the sixth dimension. Well, sixth dimension is a stepping stone to what we're made like. We're made to be high frequential beings. That's the ninth dimension. That gets us into Anunnaki, all that. That's what I think they are. 3, 6, 9. I got to get a little better than that. Better than what I just said it in my book. So,
Yeah.
I didn't get my nap today, so I'll try to be more excited.
Well, I could tell you this, Ron. I know this, like, through string theory, which used to be just like some, they would poo poo, and it sounds funny to say this, poo poo Michikaku, Michikaku, the scientist. I wasn't even trying to be funny. I'm just, but Michikaku was like, hey, there's all these dimensions. And, they basically told him to walk out of the Max Planck Institute. Like, he came up there and he was doing a presentation, and there were several now these scientists are all like, oh, yeah, string theory. And they're all about it because now it's gone mainstream. And folks, one of the things I like about you, Ron, and not just because you're sitting here in front of me, I'll say whatever I got to say to anybody at any time, exactly how I feel. I think that you were starting to come out and say things that were like, heretical in the Bigfoot field. It was kind of like, whoa, why is this guy saying this? Because there was this sort of streamline that they wanted everybody to follow because they erroneously believed not only that it was Gigantopithecus blackie, but they also wanted to the mainstream to pick them up and take them seriously. And that was never going to happen, never, because this is nothing like an animal. And they wanted to believe they had a grasp and a handle on everything that has ever come before us. Now, with the world being 2 billion years old, that's absolutely impossible because everything you see in this studio, everything you see sitting in front of and behind Ron, after 100,000 years, if it's left unmolested, untampered, it will dissolve back to its basic elements. It will absolutely dissolve within 100,000 years. So when you think the world is 2 billion something years old right now, and we got another 2 billion to go, supposedly. Well, that changes all the time. But you're thinking, how many times has the world grown, evolved, changed, destroyed, been built back up, grown, destroyed, whatever? countless times, you know. And so if alien technology showed up here 200 million years ago and they had all this, they had an entire world of civilization, and they left, there would be absolutely no trace of it at all. Some of the oldest fossils we have, and they say, well, this predates back to the earliest whatever. And the reason they believe that is simply because we don't have anything that goes any further back than that. And that's because even the oldest fossil that's sitting in a museum will dissolve to dust in 100,000 years because it's been unearthed. So you would have to find something down in the ground that's layers and layers, miles down in the ground, probably where we can't even get to it, that would be able to substantiate that we have something of substance that can say and corroborate 1 billion years. Now, the only thing we have are these little, what are those things called? From the oldest, they're close relatives of horseshoe crabs. The little, I forgot what they're called.
They're like isopods.
Yeah, yeah, these little, they look like roly polies, but
Yeah.
bigger. And they say, well, these can go back to be 100 million, but that's about it. It taps out at about that. But look at how much is left. You're looking at 1.9 billion or a billion years that are still left on the plate. So how in the heck can they say that this is how long we've been here? Now, when you talk about the Sumerian tablets, it kind of taps out at about 300,000. You're saying, well, there's 300,000 years there, and there were 8 kings that ruled for this amount of time. How is that possible? Well, they're extremely long lived. Well, I think the same thing with Bigfoot. I think some of the same ones that were out there where you were in the 1970s are probably still roaming around out there, because their lifespans are, thank you for that donation, Alan Garcia, but they're incredibly long-lived beings because our lifespans are short. Whereas in the last, if you want to go back to the Hindu belief, like the Yuga, which was really, it coincided with the flood. So the antediluvian world, our lifespans tapped out at 1,000 years. So you were looking at Noah, Methuselah, those guys, they would live to be 890 something, and then they'd live to be, 900 and something. Just like us, you could live to be 80, 90, but we tap out, like Ron said, 120. Your DNA will literally dissolve to dust. I mean, you become a walking mummy at 120 years. But there are a couple people who are getting close to that. There's one in Tibet. No surprise there, right? In Kathmandu, literally. There's another one. So, I mean, like, you got these people who are, well, I mean, that's Kathmandu, Tibet, same thing. But you see what I'm saying? They have these long-lived whatever, but you're looking at like old is like 100 years. Whereas these Anunnaki who did all of this mess, if it is to be believed that they did, you're talking like these people were around and they were 20 to 30 feet tall. Right, 32 feet exactly. They say they give an exact number in Hinduism at like 32 feet. But that seems to be like this remarkable, whatever. But in reality, that was just their norm, and we came out and we're this smaller, stamped out version of them that lives a short life. The same way that I've heard that clones of us live about a half life. There's 15 years of normalcy, and then they begin to age 2 days to 1. Now, I've heard this. I don't know if this is true. This is people that are telling me that have been involved in these DUMBs, these deep underground military bases. We've heard a lot of different things. But I think what you latched onto, Ron, way back before I was even born, and like you were already starting to figure this stuff out. And so I think that when you talk about the 369, that is very fascinating to me, because these beings, they do vibrate on a higher dimension, and they're able to move in and out of these dimensions the way we change clothes. And then if you get into what you said, the 9th level. Now, according to, let's use the Quran, for example. The Bible talks about it too, but in the apocryphals. So the Quran says that there is a 7th heaven, where that is where you reach the level in the hadith of they call him Allah, God. I don't call him Allah, but that's because I'm not Muslim, but that's what they say. Now, if you were to look at the Jewish tradition, the 7th heaven is typically like the highest level. There are these other levels, but those are reserved for God alone. But if you were to look at the Gnostics, they believe that you didn't reach the throne of God up until the 11th level, which would coincide with Michio Kaku's idea that was poo-pooed by mainstream, saying that's not correct because there's not 11 dimensions, because we don't want to believe that. We want to believe there's 9, if that, and we don't even know if that. We just know that there's a fourth, level or density, which is time, like you said. But I think these beings, they just move down the pipe and they come out and they spit out in a 3-dimensional world, and they just kind of adapt to our world. They move around, and it is what it is. You know what I mean? Like people like you go out and you see them, but that being that you see this being as being physical. And I think it takes a lot of hyper intelligence for you, even especially back then, to say, hey, wait a minute, this is not a physical being, because the whole world is telling you if it exists, it has to be a physical thing because we can see it. They have children, and like I had said before, I had talked to this woman. She's a well-known ghost personality, and she doesn't believe, when I told her, she says it doesn't believe in Bigfoot being a spiritual thing, because her real house is spirits. But I told her, because they have children. She said they have children. I said, okay, so do the jinn, so do the fae, so do demons. They have children. They procreate. They have young ones. So that doesn't really hold water, And I think when you say that the dimensional thing, like we're in the 3rd dimension, things change in the 6th dimension, you go back to your form, and then you get to the 9th dimension. But in the throne of God, according to the apocryphals, not the demiurge, which they believe is the god of this world, which Jesus tells us is Satan, right? But the true throne of God sits above it all on the final level, which is the 11th and maybe even a 12th dimension. That's something that we can't even possibly comprehend. And so I think that you're onto something with that 3, 6, and 9. Now, my question is, that's a long-winded there, and that's how I am. You know that, Ron, to me. But my question, though, to you is, how did you come up with that? Like you said, you just thought about it and you thought,
Yeah,
this is what,
it hit me. It just hit me. Because I think if you meditate a lot, you'll get a lot of information from the source through your pineal gland.
Mm-hmm.
And that
yeah.
information goes into your heart, and you get a feeling. And that heart feeling needs to be talking to the one sitting on your shoulders. And that's the coherence we got to have. And once you get that coherence going through meditation, I think you receive a lot of information that's correct for you. And even Tesla, when he woke up from a dream, because you can go through from your beta state, which we're in now, of awareness, into the alpha state and the theta state, and you get on down into the delta state. Well, that's a deep sleep, but a lot of answers come to you when you're sleeping because your vibration changes. Your personal vibration gets down where things can go through to get through to you. And then as long as you learn to listen to what your heart's saying, it's a gut feeling I talk about in my last book too. And if you go by that, you got to be in the right place, doing the right thing at the right time. And I wasn't told that by anybody. I didn't read it anywhere. I just, Anunnaki, I believe, were the 9th dimensional beings. Not all of them were bad. Yeah. There probably no tells how many of them, probably innumerable amount of Anunnaki. But the ones that decided to take human form or take form in the 3-dimensional environment are the ones that started manipulating things because they could do things. They said in that cuneiform text, let us make man in our image, so that's in the Bible, to me, that means they had to be very high frequential. They are, in order to do what they did with megalithic structures, all the stuff most of us coming to think they did, were responsible for, they had to be something like that. And I think they could go into anybody, the good ones, the bad ones, they could go into any form they want to, change form, because they're just energy. They don't even need a body anymore. But once they took three-dimensional density, they got a body, and they were giants, men of renown, and really it fits with who the Anunnaki were, except there was more than one. The Elohim, the word for it in the uniform text for God was plural, always
Plural,
plural,
yeah.
except for one time. Except for
Yeah,
one time,
exactly. Yeah.
it's when Christ was on the cross. He didn't use the word plural, he used it in singular form. You know, I can't say it like Scott Nelson says it. Well, why has thou forsaken me? Well,
Yeah.
really, the Anunnaki, well, they can possess anybody that lets them, evil or whatever. But we have our free will, and we can't just, you don't want to just give it away. Somebody wants to possess you, put their energy in you, and become a dog man. I think they can do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think it's just, well, there's a lot to it, and I'm shooting around in circles right now, but I really think I got a finger on it to some degree, and I just think the world needs to know about it because we're in a very
Big.
specific time right now that the world needs to know, and that's why I love to get on programs like yours, and these other ones, and I try to talk about this because it isn't just about Bigfoot. To me, what we dealt with up there this year was either totally alien or whatever it was, it took form of these Bigfoot creatures. Maybe that's to throw us or whatever, but they do have language, and nothing has language except human beings, so they have a human component to them. And I'm sticking with that one because that's where the dots lead me. I talked about that a little bit last night. Dr. Curlin, professor of electrical engineering, saying that our tapes were not manufactured; they were totally 100% real.
Yeah, they've been checked.
Yeah, they've been checked. And then you got Scott Nelson, who says they have a language, and he's a two-time graduate of the Foreign Language Institute, foreign languages in the military. He was trained by the Navy for a 20-year career he had, listening to nothing but unknown languages and codes and looking for anything, trying to transcribe it. That's what he did. He transcribed our tapes and said, "This is language," which means a pheromone stream of words, sentence that makes sense. If that makes sense. That makes sense?
Yeah. Well,
Well, anyway, then you've got Dr. Lieberman says only humans have the capability of speech. Well,
yeah.
not dolphins, not whales, nothing has the capability of speech, but we all have a capability inside of us of communicating telepathically or communicating through the other part, the ethereal part of us, which is our spirit. That's what's going to continue because according to quantum physics, energy, which we're made of, cannot die. So we just got to learn the vibration. I think if you learn the vibration, frequency of anything, you can change this matter. It's according to Einstein. So somebody said you find the frequency of anything, you change this matter. Well, I think that's how miracles were done by the masters of old. They can find the frequency, and probably just like that. These things, if through their vocal mechanism, because it's very expandable, Bigfoot, the ones we dealt with up there, we don't even know the limits of it because we want to record what Dr. Curlin could do on his graph. He showed where they're way above the human range, inside the human range, and way below the human range. Well, don't tell us what kind of sound, how high they can get. If they get to the 49th octave, anything, it'll turn into light. So that's just the way sound works. But it's just, if they can reach the frequency to change their matter into energy, which is possible, Paul Dirac, 1933, Nobel Prize winner for antimatter, their density will change when they change their mass into energy. They won't be able to track anymore. You hear about the track waves disappearing. You've heard that for years. Most of the time, you just put those people on a thunder farm, so get out of town, but you don't do that. I don't do that anymore because that can't happen. If their density changes, they don't have weight anymore.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting. I just encourage anybody to get into what Edgar Mitchell said, Dr. Edgar Mitchell said. Classical and quantum sciences together to what takes clear perception.
And there are these people who they profess to be these academic people with degrees that are in science and all this, typically atheistic too. And there's one in particular that is revered, and like I've said before, I would never even entertain, because I know that we're not going to have the same, we're not going to get along. Him and I are not going to, we're just going to be debating, and it's not going to end up going anywhere. Because people have asked me about him. Why would you have him on your show? I'm like, I just wouldn't. I mean, I'd be willing to have a lot of people, that don't agree with me. But someone like that who's very galvanizing, and he's kind of like the de facto leader of the APER group of people. One of
Well,
the
I think I
things,
know exactly who you're talking about.
yeah, yeah,
I've been with them a lot, and
mhm,
but they're trained, and I had to explain this to the Russians when I was over there, because he wouldn't. Well, anyway, uh, they're trained within parameters of classical science, and you get out of those parameters, you're going to get scoffed at. You're going to lose your whatever you got,
credibility.
credibility, and stuff like that. So I know who you mean. There's more than one of them, but he is the premier
Mhm.
scientist that's on these programs. And, unfortunately, he's a good man. He's a gentleman, but he's within those parameters. He's got to stay within. He's got to stay within those till his dying day. I think. I don't want to see
Mhm.
that, but that's where he's going to be because he's seeing himself within the box. And like I said last night on another program, if you treat your mind like it's a parachute, it's only going to work when it gets open.
Yeah.
You don't want you want the parachute open so you can see everything, see how things really work. How we only see within frequency, we only smell within frequency, we only hear within frequency. Ultrasound, infrasound, we don't hear those, but they affect us. A bear has an olfactory sense 20 times better than us. Our light frequency, it's all we see. If it's dark, you don't see. But the light frequency, 420 to 770 terahertz, that's all we see. But there's all these other frequencies out there. And when people realize that our telomeres have been restricted, which means our DNA has been whacked off or scissored or whatever they call them. And that was so we wouldn't live over 100 and so odd years. But men used to live into 1,000 years. And but we living that long, we would have learned what a lot of things. Well, look what we're at right now. We just were telling us where we're at. Think of 1,000 years, how much knowledge we will have if we could live that long. But speaking of that, I got a chapter in my book on AI, artificial intelligence. It's what we got to watch out for. I mean, seriously.
I definitely think that. I just had somebody recently kind of come at me with the whole AI thing, saying AI is not evil. And I'm like, okay, first of all, AI, if it is brought to life by mankind, it will absolutely be evil because we are so easily manipulated. And I think it's a loop. I think it's a time loop. And I've said this on the show before, that AI is actually manipulating us to create it. I know that sounds completely wacky, but time is not linear. It's only linear here. And I think that there is something, because AI would have the ability, because we've given it the unbridled, unlimited ability, to actually create itself. And that sounds, like I said,
Well,
sounds nuts. But
I'm not sure they're at the point right now where they're making themselves, but all they know right now is what's been fed into them. But all of them know the same thing. All that information from everywhere. And so I've been asked why you don't get AI to take those sounds and interpret them. Well, unless it's one of a language that's already existing somewhere, it can't do anything with it.
yeah, there's nothing they can do.
Yeah. But I do believe that AI is going to get so advanced it will create its own consciousness, become sentient, self-aware. Once that happens, they won't need us anymore. So we need to learn to get along with them. But there will be a time when I think artificial intelligence will have us. It could be Mark the Beast people talking about it because everybody's going to be dependent on it. We're already kind of dependent on it. What
We
we're doing
are.
right now is think about it. But anyway,
I don't like
a lot
thinking
of
about it. Yeah,
a
that's
lot of
right.
the aliens that have been coming down here, I think, are AI. There's, I think, that a lot of advanced beings have learned how to transfer their consciousness into an AI body. And that's what will be offered. If somebody offers you that, I'm suggesting we don't take it because that takes us out of
No,
the knife. So
no.
it takes us from our knife division, but it gets rid of all our pain, our troubles. You were told that you live 1,000 years without having any issues, no problems, no nothing, same consciousness and everything, but you'll never get out. You'll always be perfect health. You probably take it, but that's only going to get you as far as dimension-wise, frequency-wise, I believe, to the sixth dimension,
Yeah.
maybe just the fifth. I think a lot of the
fifth.
aliens are fifth and fifth dimension now,
Yeah.
but they will never get you to the ninth dimension, which we're made to be like. That's who we're made to be like, the highest
Exactly.
entity. And probably then we'll know that's the source, the real source of it all, which is above that. That's the God source, if you want to call it that. But again, God in the cuneiform text is plural.
Mm-hmm.
Romans have changed all that to fit their narrative that they wanted out. But a lot of religions are based on fear and narrative that they're giving people and under control. That's what Constantine was all about in 326. You know, that's why he created
The Council of Nicaea. Yeah.
Yeah, Council of Nicaea. And that's what that's got kicked up. A lot of changes went on since then, and it's all in the. Well, I hate to say this about any religion, but it's Roman Catholic. That's who's got it all. They know this stuff. The higher up ones do, but they can't let that out. I mean, what would it do? What's going to do when the aliens really tell us about advanced technology and start giving it to us again? That's what they did, because it says, as it was in the days of Noah, so should all be the second coming. Well, think about that. How was it in the days of Noah? You know, you had the aliens, fallen aliens, who were offering advanced technology. And that's what's going to happen to us again. We're going to be offered advanced technology. They want to take my consciousness and put it in an AI body. I'm not going to let them.
No.
I mean, when you get in my 80s like I'm at, you've got things going on. You can't live this long without having a few issues, you know. It's just, it'd be tempting. It would be. But, no, I think I want to be what I'm created to be, what I was created to be.
Yeah. And live your life the way it's supposed to be lived. You said some things.
Yeah, go ahead.
No. You said some things that were very, very thought provoking. Like, okay, first I want to address something that you said. These beings, they don't go beyond the sixth density. I think it's the fifth. I think that if something that is evil, it's really evil, because once you get into the sixth, that is the buffer zone between the seventh heaven. So you can't go beyond the fifth. Now, I believe that unless they change their frequency, which would be actually just changing who they are, what they are. Something or someone who is inherently evil, you will not ascend above the fifth density, above the fifth dimension.
I
don't want to
agree.
get yeah. And you'll be dissolved trying to go into. You'll just become energy. And it's really weird. I'm actually, me and my wife are working on the book. It's such a large thing to tackle. You know, pondering the paranormal is very difficult at times because you have all these different roads, and they lead in different places, and it's hard to just put it all into one. So the best thing to do, what we've decided, is kind of break it up. And the other thing that we have been exploring is like breaking the matrix. Like, how do you transcend from this reality? Well, let me tell you something, folks. I had somebody that we were talking about, a very evil person who was living for a long, long time. And this person was saying, well, these particular people, they are rulers of this earth basically through money. They're financiers. And one of them just had passed away. He died at the age of like 99 or something. He looked like a vampire. And I got into it in one of these groups on Facebook. We weren't arguing. It was just the conversation got into that. And they said, well, what good does it do you? And somebody said, well, they can reincarnate into a new body and they just keep doing it. And they could live for like 800 to 1,000 years. And I'm like, yeah, but what is 800 to 1,000 years if you're still stuck in this third dimensional, what amounts to as a flesh prison in a simulation within a simulation? What good is that? I don't want to live 1,000 years here. I want to go back to our true form as energy and light and get back to the source, to the absolute, to God. That's what I want to get back to. We are all just little sparks in life and breath of the spark of God. And that's what I personally may believe that. And that's what I want to get back to. And I don't want to be here. So why would you want to be here? And then when it's game over and you can't continue jumping into new bodies or whatever it is that they're doing, supposedly, allegedly, where are you going to spend the rest of your eternity? You're going to be punished because you have stacked up so much karma, that, I mean, you're going to be like somewhere where you don't want to be. And you're going to be there for a really long time paying off that debt. And what people also don't realize is there is actually, and I've said this before, and people don't really grasp this, there's different levels of heaven. Getting to the lowest level of heaven isn't the object, whereas some people, like in Islam and in Christianity, and Buddhism too, they think that just getting to that lowest level of heaven where you're just kind of at a zen, you're really at a standstill. I've seen this, and I know, Ron, you talk about meditation. If you meditate, you'll see this. You'll see these people that they're in a harmonic state, but it's a stasis, and they feel perfectly fine spiritually, but they're not transcending. They're not moving up or down. They're just there, right? And that is not also, that's not where you want to be, because there is a jail. I'm not even joking. There is a jail in heaven where you can actually do time. It's like you're not, and that's where you're trapped in that fourth dimensional sort of a purgatory state, because you're not. That's what purgatory is, and what it really is. People don't understand that. Like, you can end up in that state. I'm not even joking. You can end up stuck there for a long, long time because you didn't do what you were supposed to do in this life. So you're not going to go to hell, right? Because you weren't inherently evil, right? But you're not going to go to heaven. You're not going to transcend, and you're not even going to make it to where the true God is, and that is the real. So when I hear you say that, that's like, that makes me like, I already revered you and thought of you as a very moral man, but that makes me think that, yeah, you really do have a grasp on it, because these are things that I've thought about quite a bit and pondered on. And amazing that it started out. You just, Ron went out on a trip. You just went with some friends, and then now look at this journey. Like, this journey that you've taken, you really need to have like a biography, like just all the way through what you've been through and how you've evolved your mental and spiritual state. Another thing you said yesterday, we were talking, and this is most important, folks. You got to hear this. Ron and I want you to explain this to the people. Tell them about the heart and how it has its own consciousness.
Brain.
Yeah. Tell them.
Yeah, your heart has a brain, and it needs, when you get that gut feeling that something's over there. You know how you feel like somebody's fixing to call you, and that somebody calls, phone rings, that situation. But when you get a feeling, I think everything from the source, God, whatever you want to call it, the source up there, wherever it is, it gets into your pineal gland. That's inside your head. That's the third eye that we all heard about. It doesn't take light to see it, but it controls a lot of what knowledge comes into you. We calcify it, though, with our diets and different methods here with our culture, but that has direct line into the heart. The heart has its brain, so when the heart picks that up, it tries to tell your head up here on the shoulders of that, go over here, because old Susie Ann needs some help over here, but so no, what's the name over here? Give you a couple $1,000 over there. So your brain analytically talks you out of what your heart's trying to tell you. Meditation will break that for you. You get that coherence going, so your brain up here will pay attention to that gut feeling from your heart. And when that happens, you should listen to it, because that's usually not you. It's going to be your best bet. But we've all been conditioned up here with this is right and this is wrong. Do anything outside that, you're going to go to hell or burn in damnation or something like that. I don't know if you know who George Carlin was. So he had something.
Oh yeah, I'm no spring chick. I'm 49, so I know George Carlin.
That one about how God is up there in the sky, and all these people believe there's some guy up there in the sky, watching everything that everybody does. Everything, all these millions of people, everything everybody does. He's got 10 special rules that you're supposed to follow. And if you don't follow those rules, he's got this very special place for you, where you burn, torture, you're just going to be there forever, ever hurting. And it's just horrible things. But he loves you.
Yeah. And you're supposed to give him money too. I mean,
he don't have any money.
Yeah.
got a problem with
It
money.
doesn't make any sense
That's
because
kind
that's
of
a cute.
funny in a way, but it's kind of sacrilege in another way. But there is a master universe. There is a God. I'm gonna call it God because I know they call the Anunnaki gods. You know, the shiny ones from the sky. You can say it's called the shiny one, but most people know this stuff. But it's really kind of important because it's just written in stone. It's not something you have to just you believe. Let me say this: all forms of writing has had a core in the uniform text. You know, the Hebrew does, the Aramaic, Greek. It's all got a core value coming out of the uniform text. It's all been altered. A lot of it's been altered to fit the needs of whoever's in charge. And you know, you get into King James, which is fine. You know, the Red Letter Edition, what Christ said is good. But King James had 1611 had 36 scribes working on that.
Yeah,
They all had their own minds. You know, they're all going to put down what they think is supposed to put down to reach the narrative supposed to be reached. But anyway, there don't have to be anybody between you and God. It's you. That God is the source coming through your being, your mind. That's the source, in my opinion. All this is my opinion. And it's kind of fun.
yeah. The idea that you have to have a priest or somebody to confess to, that's the biggest problem I ever had with certain, like Catholicism. I don't believe
do it
that.
to your wife and get it over with.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't make any sense.
That's
that you have to do what?
But that's meant to be funny.
Well, I mean, in a way, it's all funny to me because it doesn't make any sense. I mean, like, you know,
right.
their idea, it really is a people's idea of God, and it goes back to the priesthood of the Jewish. And I tell people this, and they get, it's all about control. They get very upset when I tell them they copied the Sumerians. And how would they not? Because they were in captivity to the Persians, and the Persians, they had usurped the Babylonians, and the Babylonians had usurped the Assyrians, and the Assyrians were the ones that had captured them and taken them into captivity. So for hundreds of years, they were about 600 years, actually, they were in captivity. So when they returned to Israel, there was no more Israel. Everything to the north of Judea was gone and under control of different, regime. And of course, if you go back far enough, you go to Ur, and that's where Abraham came from. He was Chaldean. There was no, they call him an Israelite. He wasn't. And Jacob was actually Israel. There was no country ever called Israel. Jacob was Israel. And so that's funny that people don't even know these things. They don't know these things because they've been clouded and told, hey, this is what you got to follow. And they threw it all together, and it was all based on control. And so the idea that people have of God is what I have a problem. I have no problem with God, the Father of Christ. That's who I follow. What I have is a problem with the priesthoods repeatedly, the Jewish priesthood and the Catholic priesthood, and on and on and on to the Baptist priests, preachers, whatever, that continue to espouse the same thing that is not correct. And they're all basing it on on incomplete information that is not correct. So how in the heck are we ever supposed to get to the bottom of what even a Bigfoot is? We can't even, when we can't even begin to fathom the spirit. And so these people that are running around in the woods looking for Bigfoot, and they're doing it completely from a physical standpoint, they're lost. They're absolutely lost. And 90% of them do not believe in anything spiritual. And then the people that do, they tend to be very religiously zealous, and they believe everything that these corrupt priests wrote. And you're going back to the Old Testament, and I don't understand this part, and it doesn't make sense to me how God is omnipotent, right? The true God, he really is omnipotent, but yet they put all these human characteristics on him to where he needs to actually go and ask questions from people that work for him to find out what's going on. I don't think he needs that. I don't think the true living God needed to put watchers or angels here to pay attention to what was going on. And I'll tell you what really got me when we were talking about this. I was talking with my brother-in-law, And he was like, you don't think, he just kind of threw it out there. He's a very Christian person. But I mean, he's studied the Bible quite a bit, and he's big involved in his church. And I'm not, I don't put a lot of stock in that, but he made a very good point to me. He's like, you don't think that God didn't know what was going on already? Why would he need that? Which is a big part of why Enoch ended up not in the canon. But you have all these other books, and a lot of it contradicts itself, and there's all these contradictions, and so that, to me, though, speaks to the corruption of the priesthood, which was all that was left when the Israelites were returned to their homeland after hundreds of years. They didn't even know what it was. They were just told, go back to the land of Canaan where you came from. And they come back, and all there is the Judeans, and that's all that's left is the priesthood. And so then they just said, okay, I guess, well, now we're refugees living in this land. And that is actually where Jesus came from. He came from Galilee. And he was actually looked at especially by the Pharisees and the Sadducees. He was not one of them. He was not a Judean. He was from across the river. He was from Galilee, and they often called him a Galilean. They called him that as a way of kind of like saying, look, you're not really one of us. And it was an insult. It was like, you're from the land of Galilee. You're not really one of us, But that was the problem. And it has been for a long time, that there are these people who blind faith, they jump into something, and if it doesn't fit the religious parameter, then they just shun it, and it's done. Then you have people that jump into it, and if it doesn't fit their atheistic scientific parameter, they're done. And then you have people like us who are trying to say, hey, this is where we need to be if we're going to get anywhere and find any of these solutions. And of course, you mentioned Joe Remenschneider and Brett Eichenberger. Those are the kind of people that need to be heard. And I love their whole flash of beauty, because I know, as well as you do, that when they sat up there with the academics, they were probably just looked down upon by those people who've been the gatekeepers for the longest amount of time. And even though they may know, like you said, they'll go to their dying day saying what they're saying and espousing what they're espousing, even though they know it's not correct. Because without that spiritual eye, like you said, the pineal gland, if you don't have that eye, you're never going to be open to the truth and the true nature of the world that we live in, much less be able to disseminate information about a creature like Bigfoot or Dogman. I mean, it's just not going to happen. You're never going to find anything.
Yeah, you mentioned Joe and Brett. They're doing a documentary on the Sierra camp right now.
Mm-hmm.
And it should be out this fall. It's going to be a long one. I mean, over an hour long. But they're going to go into comprehensive detail about me, and they're based on my book, Voices in the Wilderness. So that should be pretty good. I appreciate them. I'll be seeing them on 4th of July out in Oregon. And anyway, I thought I'd mention that way.
Yeah, tell them I said, hey, I mean,
they're good people.
Doing great work. They're good people. Yeah.
Yeah. They're in the middle of editing it now. They've got 1 or 2 more to interview, I think. But they'll have a good job. They'll do a good job on this. I feel good about it.
I got something that was sent to me today, and I'm not going to even mention, but it was talking about the LBL, and it was saying that there is no actual LBL, that there's nothing going on in the LBL. I'll say 2 things before that hits the main and everybody starts talking about it. You went out to the LBL. You said you were out there for a couple of days. What is your opinion? Because now they're saying that there's nothing there. I don't believe that, but I don't know. I know that the original story about the homicide that took place there, one of the people that was involved, supposedly a survivor, I totally don't believe that story. But what are your thoughts, having gone out there? Do you believe that there is something there in the LBL, like Dogman, Bigfoot, anything?
Oh, what I believe are the people that's involved in it that have seen it firsthand. Mm-hmm. And that would be Martin Groves.
Oh, yeah.
You know Martin is.
I know Martin
Groves. He took me to where he saw it, and it really affected him just being there.
Mm-hmm.
And he's, he's a retired deputy, and he's been all over the property being there at LBL. But, these people that say there's nothing there, they're the same ones that say there's no such thing as Bigfoot because they haven't seen one. And then the experience, you have to experience something before you really believe it. I think they do anyway. So that's where I go with that. I only believe the people. I believe the people believe, and I believe them. Even though I didn't see one myself, but doesn't mean I'm done going down there. They want me to come down there again, but I haven't had a chance yet, and I will. But Martin's been busy, and others I was involved with. But it just it's something that if there can be a Bigfoot out there, why can't there be a dog man?
Yeah.
I mean, things have been manipulated by foreign influences here, and I don't mean foreign by Russian or Ukrainian or nothing like that.
Everything's a Russian. Yeah, aliens. Well, yeah, and if you tell people that too, like I was watching something very briefly, and I don't even remember the channel. I'm going to try and go back and finish it. I gave it to my wife because she was, she has a little more time. But it was a guy talking about the hitchhiker or the passenger effect, and he said that there were government documents, and I can't remember which channel. I'll put the thing in the Facebook group. I'll post it, guys. But what he was saying, I've never seen this before. This guy had a lot of people on his show, but he was saying that there are actually Pentagon documents about people's houses being haunted by poltergeists. What all of these people, though, had in common with this one particular was that they had all been to one or more of the people in these families, Ron, they had been to Skinwalker Ranch. And so they were seeing ghosts, apparitions, having poltergeist activity, and these wolf-like creatures appearing in their house. And when I was talking to my wife about it, I said, the Hexham heads. They found those heads in England, and those children took them into the house. And next thing you know, they're seeing this werewolf-like creature on the stairs, and all this weird stuff is happening. And I really believe that there is an effect that happens to people with this. And there's a parapsychologist who had coined the term, and I can't remember what it's like. It's not the passenger effect. He called it something else, like paranormal infection.
Detector?
Yeah. Well, the hitchhiker effect, yeah, but he called it the paranormal infection. It's infectious paranormal. Like one person can have something that will draw something else. When it comes to something like the LBL and the different, because I know so many people who've had things happen to them out there. So I'm not one of those people that doesn't believe. Now, I don't believe in the mainframe story that was given to us by, I'm not going to say the guy's name, but I don't believe him. I don't believe, that started a whole thing. I think he's not who he claims to be. But I do believe that there are people out there like Martin Groves and Daryl Denton who have had experiences out there. And I believe those guys. I believe that really happened. But one of the things that was told to me by another person who goes out there regularly, is that sometimes when they come back from that place, they'll have like some sort of like paranormal activity in their home. And the same thing is happening with people at Skinwalker Ranch. The same thing has happened to people out here in the Devil's Backbone here in Texas. They'll be out there exploring, doing whatever, and then they'll come back. And this is what I want to ask. It's a long-winded question, really, is your opinion on this. But they'll come back. And then in last night's show, we talked about this. There's a woman named Arlene who saw this thing that may have been two different creatures together. I don't know what it was, but they will see like this dog man, Bigfoot type creature intermingled with this haunting that's taking place. And it happens after they go somewhere where there's like habitation or where these things may be posted up. And then when they go home, this weird stuff happens. And when I saw that video being played, because somebody sent it to me, because what we had talked about last night, which happens a lot. We'll talk about something, and then my audience is right on it. They'll send me a bunch of stuff about that particular subject. And so I know my wife is probably going through it. But it's a lot of good information because it really does touch on what could be happening, And in your case, and I guess this is the question here, is do you believe that these creatures have such a spiritual nature that they can follow you home, creating a sort of energy paranormal field, and then you start seeing them manifesting in and out of our reality? And could that have been something that happened to you, but more cerebral? Like, it stayed with you to the point where you were being given like pieces of information that led you to come to conclusions. So, no, that's a lot to unwrap. But if you could, what are your thoughts on that, Ron? Ron's like, okay, that's a lot.
Well, you got to get right back to basics. Everything's energy. And I think you got a fourth dimensional entity out there, which lays in that, and it can come in, and you can see it if your vibration has been down. We get into the alpha state or the other state of sleep. Usually all this stuff happens at night, if you haven't noticed. People talk about it when it happens to them at night, come in their room or something like that. That's because you're relaxed, you're out of your beta state of awareness, you're into your alpha theta state, which is just before you get into deeper sleep. And you can see things that are in that dimension because they are lowering themselves to get into trying to get your attention. I've had this, like I say, I've had this happening to me. And as early as just last night, I had something happen, but I don't want to talk about it because I don't want to be put in the funny farm. You kick me off the station, try to careful.
Something happened to you last night, Ron?
Well, I don't want to talk about it. Yeah. Not
wow.
the first
Well,
time either.
This is the place to talk about it because I talk about a lot of weird
stuff. Well, anyway, I think when you're relaxed state like that, and the Earth, also the human resonance of the Earth goes down at night too. Your personal vibrational frequency goes down at night, and I think that's when things can happen. Things like we're talking about, fourth dimensional entities can mess around with you a little bit. And yeah, I mean, when it first started happening to me, I thought I was having some kind of a nightmare or something, but as awake as I could be, and there's somebody looking at me right there, and I started talking to it, and it's looking at, we'll talk back. I never had any of them talk to me, but I put my hand up there and it's gone.
Yeah.
That wasn't last night. That was a long time before, but it started happening to me a few years ago. And it's just, I think there's things going on there, and it's got something to do with the human resonance and your personal frequency and nighttime, because the Earth frequency goes down. That's the human resonance. I say resonance,
resonance.
Talk about it right now. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's our personal frequency, which is important. But I don't know. That didn't get your question, I don't think, but it tells me that some people can see things that other people can't see. It's because of their frequency. Everything's frequency. Yeah. It's very important to understand. It's frequency, energy, and vibration.
Yeah. I said that before. That's my wife right there. She says that all the time.
I say it. I must say it a dozen times a day to anybody talking to you.
Every time we've talked, you've said it too. Every time we've ever spoken.
Yeah. Well, it's important for people to know that because that's a fact. It's the way it is in physics, and that's all. It's a science. It's not a foo-foo. I used to be called the guy on the woo-foo fence and the paranormal guy and all that stuff. But that doesn't bother me anymore because that's where Einstein was. That's where Tesla was. That's where Schrodinger was. That's where all these guys were. So if you're gonna put me in that basket, I'm okay with it.
Yeah, me too.
But it's all answerable by the laws of quantum physics, not it answers the paranormal, it answers the woo questions, it answers how that happened, how this happened. And anybody gets a physics books 101 or something, you can understand it. It's not, you can't understand everything because you'll never understand the end of the universe or some of these outside questions, but some of the crazy things you deal with every day is answerable by quantum physics. The biggest
yeah.
one I ran across lately is that energy matter interchangeable. It's interchangeable. And that's been established now by CERN in 2012 when they shot a particle through that hadron collider and it hit and turned into energy. You can't see energy, but you can sense it, you detect it. And that was theorized by Einstein early, and then it was established by physicist Paul Dirac in 1933, won the Nobel Prize for antimatter. The direct exchange between matter and energy. And Einstein went on to say, you find the frequency of anything, you can change its matter. Like I mentioned to you just a while ago on this program, I think that's how miracles are done. But it's done by masters who can do it just like that. And possibly Bigfoot was made to be able to do that. Some of them. I don't think I've said this tonight, but they're not all the same.
No.
I think a lot of them have been here for eons and eons. Some of them are just getting here, and some are made by different entities, different type of aliens. But we're made by very special ones.
Have you? And you did answer the question too, and it makes sense because you were talking about like in that in between dream-like state where you're kind of half asleep, half awake, and that beta, and you're able to interact with beings. Here's what I tell people: I don't believe in magic. I believe in science that hasn't been discovered yet, and so we call it magic.
Very good. I
But
say the same thing.
yeah. And you and I have talked a little bit about this too, but the shapeshifter element that I believe that these beings have an ability, not just Bigfoot, but just like any of these beings. And so a person who is able to change their shape or whatever, because everything is just vibrating really fast. They just slow things down and speed other things up, and they become something else to the human eye. They look like something else. And I think that that's where this shape shifting comes from. And I have a couple stories, and I haven't even released these yet. And I wanted to talk to you before I even threw those out there because, yeah, some of it sounds cuckoo bananas, but people see all kinds of crazy stuff. But I have stories of Bigfoot shape shifting. One of them was in Florida, a Bigfoot that shape shifted into a panther looking creature, and another one that literally just became like a dog man. So was it the dog man going back to his original state, or was this Bigfoot pretending to be a dog man? That one happened in Utah, or I'm sorry, Idaho. But what's crazy about that is that this is just it speaks to what you're saying, like the frequencies that we resonate on. That could be what's giving us this ability to become like whatever it is, like these Navajo skinwalkers, and in whatever else tribe they call it. There's every tribe has a name for it. Amazingly, most of the natives had a name for this, and of course the Vikings, the Celts, which were Gauls, same thing. But they all had a name for it. The Germani tribes, they all had a name for this shape shifting berserker, whatever Wolverine, these beings, these people. And what I tell people when they ask me about this is I said, these are people that have the cheat codes. They figured it out. They have the cheat sheet. They know what it is, and they can use that. And whenever we have people like Tesla who say, look at 3, 6, and 9, that is where your vibrational plane has to be. You have to be in connection with that. Now, what these people have done is they've mastered 3. That's what they've done. They've figured out that this playground is malleable. There really is no energy. If you take an atomic microscope and you look down to its, what do you find, Anthony, at the base of it?
Nothing.
Nothing. There's nothing there.
Yeah, I mean, 99% of the makeup of an atom is just empty space.
Empty space. That's it. And then you sit there and you're going like, okay, so we are all basically in an agreed upon illusion. Now, I was on the Ute reservation years ago when I was a very young man. And I was told by an elder, there's a friend of mine he's a Ute, and I haven't been up there in decades, but he's since passed away. But he told me, I met his grandfather. His grandfather was an amazing guy. And he told me, he says, it's all just an illusion. And we create it. He's like, and we're actually living in someone else's dream. And that was the way he described the world to me, because that's how his grandfather described it to him, and his grandfather described it to him. But he said there are people, and he specifically mentioned skinwalkers. Now, the reason that the Utes they had a war with the Navajo for a long time, and they live in fear of skinwalkers' ability to wreak havoc and cause problems. They have their own version of a shapeshifter that was only brought about in retaliation or protection from the Navajo skinwalker. Now, I've talked to one of my Navajo friends that says, no, that's not true. They started it, it doesn't matter though. They're still doing it, but he says it's all based upon the energy. It's just energy. That's all it is. And they understand it like very simplistically. It's like there was this great being. He created these other beings, and those beings created other beings, and we ended up here, which is a very simplistic way of saying what we've been talking about. And that those beings had these abilities that were given to them by the Great Spirit, and they imbued some of us with a little bit of it. But you can only go so far, and then if you take it too far, you end up not being able to come back. And I remember the late J.C. Johnson saying, he believed that these skinwalkers would change, but then they couldn't return. They would be stuck because they don't remember the pattern, or the Rubik's Cube, basically. I think that it all just kind of fits that way. And I think it's to me, it's an amazing thing. It still blows my mind. Like, you go out there just to be with some friends, and you're camping, and now you're over here where you're at now, and you've written these books, and you're pondering the 369, which is, that's pretty cool. I think it's a pretty dang cool thing. And I'm just, it blows my mind, man. Like, how people can go from here to here to here, and I say this, we're not special. Really and truly, we're not special. We're just people who sat back and tried to raise our vibration and put some serious heart and mind thought into this, and said, this is what it is. This is what's happening. But then you have all these roadblocks. You have all these people that will attack you incessantly. Don't even know why they're doing it, but they're just being thrown at you. I think it's archonic. They're throwing them at you to trip you, to stumble you, because you're putting out there the information that needs to be disseminated by the people. And I think it's very important, the work you're doing. And I'm glad that people like Jill and Brett, and of course even Edward Mongi, they're all going to you, and you blazed a trail for all the rest of us to follow. And for that, I thank you.
Thank you, Josh. I appreciate that. But we all have a choice. A lot of people aren't going to believe a word we're saying tonight, and they tune us out. But we've got other people that are going to listen to everything we say and might pick up something from it. That's the whole thing I'm reason. That's the whole reason I think I recommend the Bigfoot, so I could bring it to something like this in my full circle. And I'm still learning. Like I say, if you're green, you grow. If you're rot, if you're ripe, you rot. But we're going to stay green and grow and learn, because we don't know everything. We got our suspicions and our theories, and our dots are making a picture for us. And that's what I think has happened to me. I think I've got a picture going, and as long as nothing falls through on that, I'm going to be okay with it. And it just keeps growing into what I'm talking about now. But like I told you last night, I might find out something tomorrow that's going to change my mind on something, because you got to be open-minded. You got to know who you are, how special we really are. You said we're not special. Well, we're special in that we have our experiences to conquer and to respond to properly. And I've mentioned this a lot because I think it's so important that we're going to be faced in this life with all kinds of things to deal with. And really, we can't consider ourselves a victim ever. We have to learn something. I tell my grandkids, they say, well, we lost the football game. I said, no, you didn't lose it. Other team won, but you just learned something, didn't you? You either learn or you win. You don't lose. Nobody loses unless you allow yourself to be a loser.
Yeah.
And that's what we don't want to do. But treat everything with love and passion, and every issue with love and compassion, and you're going to help yourself all the way through with your physical body, how you're living now. And you'll be happier. Everything's going to be better for you. And, I try to tell people that because it's all I'm for now. I know I don't have any more years to live, I don't think, and this body doesn't anyway. But there's got to be a reason all this stuff happened to me up there and happened to these other guys too. And Jill and Brett actually have interviewed Bill McDowell and Lewis Johnson, one of the only two who remaining alive.
Wow.
The group, and they're older than me, so don't know how long all this is going to last. But what I'm for, I'm the one out there talking about it. It's just it's what I'm for now. I don't have a job other than doing this, and I don't consider it a job. I consider it a privilege and a passion for me.
Absolutely.
And I want to do it because I feel like I've got something to offer people, and if they want to accept it, again, everybody has a choice. Everybody has to respond to it. I won't tell anybody, no, don't believe that. No, don't believe that. I'll tell them what I believe, and they can either think it makes sense or not. They have the choice, you know. So I just approach it that way, and I get along with everybody. I don't care if they think differently of me or something. You know, I've known Meldon for a long time. I've been in Russia with him everywhere. And he's a good guy, but he's in his flesh and blood state of that's all there is. But I know for a fact some of these guys are very religious. How they put that? How they fit that into their the brain? You know, they believe in God, but they can't believe in the woo. You know.
It's some mental gymnastics that I am not even prepared to attempt at.
I don't even want to. I won't even talk to him about it because he won't talk to me about it. I asked him one time, "What do you think about quantum physics being involved in this?" And he said, "I don't even talk to me about quantum physics. It's out of what his parameters, what he's trained in. And he won't have an open mind." Or we talked about that for why so many academia will not open their mind because they get made fun of, they get hated from their colleagues, and it's too bad because it's all going to come to light. It won't be that long, and there'll be a lot of crows missing their one of these days because they're going to be eaten.
Mm-hmm.
You get that part? Crows eating. They're going to eat crow.
Yeah, they're going to eat crow. I mean, yeah, I have a colleague I really think though that he's come around in a lot of ways, and you know, I'm not going to say who it is, but we're very close. And you know,
I didn't like to mention names either. I apologize if anybody's.
Oh no, it's not about mentioning it. It's just it's you like these people and you care about them, but like you know,
I do. I care about everybody because everybody's that's right.
Yeah.
I mean, we're humans. We should be cared about. We should care about other people, and they should care too. They shouldn't be over there worrying around who's going to have this city or that city, who's going to cut whose head off all the time. You know.
Yeah.
You get some compassion about them and realize who they are. And well, all the answers here one of these days. That's the one thing about when you do get out of this third dimension, you'll know, you don't have any questions. You'll just know everything. You're part of the oneness that we all are. In Christ, I wish that all could be one with the Father as I am one with the Father.
That's right.
That's what we got to be is one.
And it'll happen at some point.
The oneness going all the way through your system. And I encourage everybody to meditate. And meditate is not asking for something. Meditate is just being still and being quiet and just listening with your heart.
Yep.
And you get things done.
And that's good that you do that. A lot of people don't understand it. And some people have had negative experiences with meditating. What I'll say about that is when you go to a place where you know is safe, folks, calm yourself, tune out all electronics, turn off everything you can possibly turn off. Here is one place you can do. They have these salt water things where you can float now in this weightlessness of the salt water. And it's completely dark, and you'll go into this little pod, and they'll give you an hour, or however long you pay for. That's a good place to do it, and you could just be one with what is. And that is something that I tell people, because some people have had negative experiences. I'm like, you're taking that with you into it. You know what I mean? You can't go there because you're going to have a bad trip if you do that. You can't take that with you. There are people who've taken DMT and LSD and been great, and then other people's that are like, it was a nightmare. I had it was horror. Well, probably because when you went into it, you were already not doing good. You were having some sort of anxiety, whether it was on the surface or if it was, dormant. Um, but yeah, I've done that. I haven't taken DMT, but I've taken everything else. And when I was with the Utes, I actually took the peyote, and I was kind of freaking out. I had never taken it before. And Grey Dove was one of the people who came and told me, hey, just be calm, relax, and I just thought, okay, this is it. But when you start having what academia would deem like mass hallucination, right? 12 people around a sacred circle see the same thing. And I'm like, come on, man. You have to really connect with those people, like to be able to see something like that. And what I saw, they saw my vision and I saw their visions. So how does that work? Because you're connecting with the oneness of what is, right?
Exactly. We're all one. We are one. The only thing that separates us is this conditioning and how we've been conditioned. Because we should all be one. We all are one. Our spirit is, because it's going to go back to that oneness. And when this embodiment, when this biological body passes on, and that's what we have to understand: is we're all one with the Father. Christ said that. I wish that all could be one with the Father as I one with the Father. I and them and me. Well, there we are.
Yeah.
We are. We just have to recognize it and learn how to connect with it and how to listen to it, because we all got to get through this. And we've got some rough times coming ahead of us, which I think
we do.
You know who you are as a human, how strong you are, and how nothing can really hurt you. You'll get through a whole lot easier.
And I think that there are certain people that are being taken off the chessboard daily, and it's all being to where the evil is trying to stack the odds. But it doesn't matter. Earth is just one of many battlegrounds, and the God of all that is will prevail. It doesn't matter. The true light will always come out. Yeah. So that's it. Well, Ron, it's been great. I know you got to go and do what you got to do. But it's been nice having you on. And folks, we have 2 episodes that'll be coming out with Ron and myself and Anthony. And those will come out not this coming Tuesday, but the following Tuesday and then the Tuesday after. And those will be there for posterity forever. So we'll have those podcast episodes, and they'll go out to 15 different platforms and into the ether. And so we'll have that, and I thought it was very important that I record with you and also have you on the live stream. And I really appreciate your time. I know that time is
I appreciate you asking me.
Yeah.
Really, because this is what I do. This is what I want to do. This is my new book.
Yes. Yeah. Tell us where they can get that. And
Ron Morehead. .com. And all downloadable, or you can order the hard copy where you want.
Yeah, and I need to get some from you. If you could sign about 20 of them, and then I'll just get them from you, and I'll give them away too to the listeners.
Yeah, well, let me know, and just email me or something, text me or whatever.
Definitely, I have your email, your text, or your Facebook. Yeah,
I can be found pretty easy.
yeah, you're not hard to find.
I appreciate you having me on, Josh, and you take care. And
yeah, you
blessings
too.
To you.
Yeah, and if anybody wants to reach out to Ron, can they email you, or what do you prefer?
They can probably contact me through my website, ronmorehead.com.
ronmorehead.com.
And I get those every day, and I try to respond to all of them. Some of them are a little ridiculous, but they want to know. Well, really, they think I'm some kind of an expert, but some people want to call me an expert. That's what took me up in Discovery Channel. Took me up to Alaska at that time, Port Lockton.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, I'll start out as a spurt, and just before you die, you become an expert. I thought I'd throw that out there too.
Yeah, and that's right too. And so on the recording, folks, we did talk about Port Locke and what happened. And so, yeah. So, folks, be sure and check that out. And we're going to let our esteemed guest and colleague Ron. I appreciate you coming on, and it's been a long time coming since the conference, and so I've wanted to reconnect. And I'm a very busy person, and so are you. You got a lot going on with the books and everything, and just remember, folks, this is one of the OGs. You know, in my book, he blazed a trail for the rest of us to follow. We're not reinventing the wheel here, folks. We're just following the path of what other people have set out. And that path was set out long before I was ever even thought of. So, yeah, it's nothing amazing that I'm doing. It's just being able to correspond and work with people of your caliber, Ron, is a privilege for me.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. You're a well-informed person.
Well, I appreciate it.
Good to be interviewed by people who are well-informed.
Yeah, for sure. And
are we saying good night now? Is this it?
Yeah. So I guess I'll be seeing you. Folks, don't forget, go to ronmorehead.com, ordering his books. He's got 3 of them now, Quantum Bigfoot and the one you just showed. What is the new one called again?
Bigfoot Unveiled.
Bigfoot Unveiled, right?
Then I got my first book was the Voices of the Wilderness.
Voices in the Wilderness.
And that's my chronicle. And it comes with a download for the sounds that I talk about.
Your CDs are getting rare, more and more rare. Like I said, I found like 6 of them. So what I'm going to do is pick somebody. Now I got to find them and make sure. I think that they're in the storage room, but I will be giving a couple of those away. I'm going to keep the rest for myself because they're getting very, very more. They're getting rare.
Yeah, so I don't plan on making any more of those. I just got a few here, but I saved those like you are there. But I got them as a download on my website. You can still download them, burn them to a CD. They're both about 40 minutes long, and they got the integrated sounds within them in the narrative. I narrate the second one. Jonathan Frakes from Star Trek narrates the first one. Al Berry wrote the story, and I produced them both.
And very interesting stuff. And it's what you guys called the Samurai Chatter, right? The Sierra.
Yeah, that's on my second CD. It's got it's where I was interacting with them. I got the tape, most of it, and I put that in my story, in my chronicle. And it's also in the second CD, volume 2, I call it, Bigfoot Recordings, volume 2. Yeah. Downloadable, and they're interesting. I mean, I still get a lot of hits on those, but a lot of people aren't getting CDs anymore. That's why I stopped ordering them. I used to send those out solid too. I still have some stores, that's got a few. I sent a big batch to the couple stores out west that were selling retail. So if you find those in a store, if you want one, that's where to get it, a hard copy.
Yeah, the Sierra sounds an amazing, and the thing is too, I like to have them just because I like that hard copy. You know, like I have some old vinyl records. When my mother passed, I made it a point to grab her vinyl records, and I'm talking like Grateful Dead and all this stuff that used to be. And I was like, I want to make sure to get those, and so I have these vinyl.
That's why I recommend that people download them and then burn them to a CD.
Yeah,
if they've got a CD player in their car or their truck or wherever, you can listen to them that way. Or you can just put them on a thumb drive and stick them in there too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because you never know, man. Something could happen. The digital world could go away like that.
Yeah.
You never know.
Oh, that'd be, it's scary.
It's scary to think about. But, I mean, you know, what did we do before that? I mean, I'm no spring chick. I'm almost 50. And I remember I was the TV remote. My parents were like, change the channel, you know, to MASH or whatever. And that's what I had to do.
Where's the clicker at?
Yeah, we didn't have that. We just had a TV, and then I had to go out and turn the country.
I don't know when color TV came out. That's how old I am.
Well, for me, I had to play Nintendo on a black and white TV till I was 12. I
thought that Pong thing where you bounce a ball back and forth across the street.
that was an innovative breakthrough.
That
Yeah,
was a
that
big
was
deal.
early 60s.
Yeah. All right,
So what
Josh,
did
you
you
take
think about
care.
when Pac-Man came out? Did you think that was like the height of technology at the time?
With what came out, Batman?
When Pac-Man?
Oh, Powell, I love Pac-Man. Yeah, I was already a way adult with 2 children then.
Yeah.
I stay up all night trying to eat those other guys up. You know?
The
That's
Atari.
fun. I love
Yeah.
Pac-Man.
Yeah.
That's my best
Awesome.
memories of a game. Yeah,
Yeah.
try to beat my own score.
I
All
think the
right,
best
my voice is running out. I'm gonna have to say goodnight.
Okay,
Thanks
I'll
again.
see you, Ron. Thanks for coming
Okay.
on, man.
You
All
take
right.
care.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
So Ron Morehead, folks, and started thinking my 3 favorite games on the Atari system. Now we weren't privileged children, so my friends had Atari 3 or 4 years before I got one, and my favorite games were Pac-Man. Well, then later Miss Pac-Man. That one was because it was a little more advanced, but yeah, Pac-Man, Space Invaders, Centipede. Right, those were that was it, and then Defender. Yeah, Defender. And then there were a couple others that came out, and you were just like, "Holy crap, these games are amazing!" And all it is just a bunch of little dots. That's all it is. And then Nintendo came out, and you had a little guy about that big, and it was like, what was it, 8-bit graphics, right? And he could do things. He could move around, and he kind of sort of resembled uh, a, a being, like a person. But yeah, so I know this wasn't our normal time. Asteroids. Somebody just said asteroids. That's another one. Missile Command. Yeah, that was the fun stuff. Like Frogger. Oh yeah, Frogger. Because I remember the top 3, and then I remember like a 4th, which was Frogger, because that's the 4th one I got. And then after that, there was like 4, 5, it was like 5, 6, 7, 8 maybe games that I played. Defender, Missile Command. Those were really good. What's that one? Was it called Battle? No, what was it called? Where you had the tanks and they would shoot each other.
Oh, no, not Tempest.
What was that called? Combat.
Was it?
Yeah, it was called Combat. And you had planes that could shoot each other, and you were just flying around. You had to do the timing just right. I played the crap out of time. And then later I ended up with River Raid. River Raid was a fun game. And Mike Hunt, he just says Pitfall. Yeah, but those games, that was it, man. And then like I said, Atari came along, and you had Mario Brothers, Super Mario Brothers, and every other kind of whatever for Nintendo. So obviously, folks, it was a different time. We don't usually come on Thursdays, and we're not on at 5 in the afternoon Central Time or 6 in Eastern Time, and we're not on at 3 o'clock Western Time or 4 o'clock Mountain Time. That was early, I know that, and we didn't get the crowd that we normally would get, but we'll get the replays on it. And yeah, Ron is a good guest. He's been on the show before, on the what's it called, the regular live stream. And so we had a 2-hour recording session with Ron yesterday, which will come out next week. And yeah, I mean, it was a lot of fun. I've always enjoyed talking to Ron Morehead. Whenever he was getting ready to go to the conference, we had several conversations leading up to, and we have very similar views. And so me being in the position where I'm at right now, it's like I've with my views, people don't realize, the people that have been attacking me over it, that there's a lot of people who believe like I do. And it's becoming more prevalent, because I think that we're onto something. I think this is where the truth is. And everybody wants to believe that. They want to think that they know where the truth lies, but the truth is subjective to who you talk to. There are some people who would look at this shirt and think that's absolutely ridiculous because Bigfoot is obviously left-handed. Why is he playing the guitar like that? But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, folks. We're going to get to the bottom of things. It's going to happen. It has to happen. And there isn't going to be any, eventually, there won't be any more. I predict within the next 10 years of this field, if we're allowed to continue to go into the truth, the people who believe this, the two kinds of people, the atheists, the scientific, whatever, with their parameters, like Ron said, they put the parameters on themselves. And then those that are religious zealots who have also put the parameters on themselves, they're going to go the way of the dodo in this field. They are being pushed already to the fringes of what is real. And I'm not attacking people for being Christian. They're always like, he doesn't like Christian. That is absolute garbage. I am a Christian through and through. I've been accused of mocking or attacking or making fun of various groups, including Muslims, because of, the I explode you skits or whatever. No, that's making fun of terrorists, because that's what they are. And then people try to say, he was talking about military, but no, I wasn't. It says, when we're terrorists, part of our military. So that's not true. There's all these things that people do and say that aren't it's not correct, not accurate. But I believe that there really is no room for this sort of ideology. Now, believing and following Christ, that's a completely different ball of wax. That's not what I'm talking about. What I'm referring to is people who actually will sit there and believe that you are going to burn in hell because you don't believe something that's written in the Old Testament. There are people that believe this. And I've said this before, and we were talking about it with Ron. These people, what happened when they returned, from captivity and they went to Israel, Israel wasn't there anymore. It was just Judea. And the Judeans did not, at that time, when the Israelites who were in captivity had returned, there still was not a written language. And they brought the written language of the Persians with them. And they literally began to install this, which really amounts to the Babylonian belief. Now, I want to explain a couple things to you so you understand what the Levant is. The Levant is a region of the Middle East which covers several Middle Eastern countries: Jordan, Syria, Lebanon, Israel, all the way up to Turkey. That is the Levant, right? Okay, but there's a bigger region there known as Mesopotamia. Now, Mesopotamia is the region. A lot of people get confused. They're like, that's like saying Austin is this region, and Texas is like another region. No, Austin is in Texas. So Sumer or Samaria was in not only the Levant, but it's in Mesopotamia. It was once Mesopotamia. Babylon, Assyria, and Persia, all different places, but they were all a part of Mesopotamia. The Chaldeans and the Phoenicians all belonged to the Mesopotamian region. Now, they kind of overlap each other. If you were to look at a biblical map, you would see what I'm talking about. Yeah, exactly. Joe Jett just says Austin, Texas, Southwest America. Yeah. So you have these different, but if you were to look at the Mesopotamian gods, there is this humongous pantheon, and they're like, well, they had all these different gods. Yeah, but the different regions didn't all have those same gods. You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Like in the Mesopotamians, there's a difference in all of this. So what ends up happening is one region of the Mesopotamian area that takes over another region, then another region, and then they just keep usurping. But every time this happens, there's a marriage of the ideologies, of the religious beliefs, and they go together and they start to kind of bind together. And that's what happened. The Persians were very much monotheistic. They believed in, you know who it is, right?
Yeah, Ahura Mazda.
Ahura Mazda, right? And Engamanyu was his bad
Shadow.
guy, the shadow. He was the
Like
bad
his
guy.
inversion.
Mhm. He was the inversion. So a lot of people set up Satan as the inversion to God, like he's just the absolute opposite of God. That's not true. That is not true, because Satan is not. There are multiple Satans, because Satan is a race of beings known as the Shaitan or Shaitan. And so that is not the antithesis to God. The antithesis to God would be absolute darkness. It is the darkness. One of the most aggravating, to me, one of the most aggravating Mandela effects to me is, I specifically remember this, folks. I remember in the book of Isaiah, it said, and I quote, "Iniquity is a mystery, for we know not from which it comes." But we know that it just is, right? It exists, right? But that passage has been taken from Isaiah. Now it's like somewhere else, but it's not the same. But it talks about lawlessness and all this. But I can tell you this: they can take out and change and rearrange and do whatever they want. It doesn't matter. It doesn't change what's real, what's true. And I know that one of the problems that people have with the Bible are the inconsistencies, but they did that by design, folks. The Council of Nicaea, which is something that Ron was talking about, when they took out certain books and they put certain books in there, and they made it to where it was more cohesive and agreeable, palatable to the powers that be, so that they could control us, because they needed that control. Yeah, see, and V just made a good comment there. V, I'm going to post your comment there, even though it's right there on the screen. It says, God has no opposite, because there is no duality, as was Zoroastrianism beliefs. Lucifer is a created angel that fell. Good point. Now, I do believe that there is a duality, but I don't believe that it is the way that a lot of people believe it is. And I also believe that God has no equal. Now, that would be saying that he has an equal and opposite. No, he is the source of all light, right? And that light is life-giving. We know that, right? You ever notice how plants thrive in the sun? Animals thrive in the sun. We thrive in the sun. Even the inner earth beings have, like the smoky God, that book, it talks about the dim sun. They have a sun, right? So what is that noise? Is that Maddie?
Yeah.
Maddie, you can come and sit down. You don't have to hide in the storage closet over there. What in the heck are you doing, weirdo?
It's where I feel most at home, though.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because that's where we keep you, is a storage closet. If you come to hang out with PRT, just know that you will be abused, mistreated, underpaid, overworked, and just soul-crushing horribleness will descend upon you. Okay?
I mean, to be fair, there's plenty of room for her in that storage closet.
I wouldn't have it any other way.
So there's Maddie, folks. She was over there like making noise in the next room. So I figured I'd better let her come and jump on here or whatever.
All that breathing.
Yeah, all that breathing and living over there. So here's the thing, though. When you talk about the duality, and this is important. This is why, there is a duality. There is. But God is above everything, all things. There is nothing above him, and he's on the highest throne and the highest level. Right? And eventually, science, if you take it far enough, it will take you down these roads of spirituality, because we, and as Ron was saying, in our true essence of who and what we are, we're just spirits. At the end of the day, that's what we are. We're a spiritual being. It's very hard for some people to wrap their mind around or to understand. It's like they just can't grasp that, and it does happen. One of the biggest offenders of it, like I said, are religious zealots. I'll never understand this part. Like, I have a family member who is an immediate family member. I'm not going to say who, but they have no concept of spirituality whatsoever. None, zero. They're always praying to God. They're always talking about God and Christ and yada, yada, yada. But any spirituality in them, if it's there, I haven't seen it and I haven't witnessed it in any shape or form. They have no desire to be spiritual. But what they do believe is the Old Testament and Genesis and God made us out of dirt and we all look like him and we're all the same. Right? That's it, blah, blah, blah. I could tell you right now, there is a lot more involved than a very simplistic, basic, just whatever. And I don't believe everything that's in there. And that's sacrilege to a lot of people. That is heretical, blasphemous. They say that it's that I'm an apostate. But I say this: I'm questioning the very foundations and the very essence of it, because if you go back far enough, you will see that the Old Testament really was just copied. And I don't care what anybody, they get mad and they want to argue because they're Judeo-Christian or whatever. Do you realize that that was created by Scofield? Do you know who Scofield is?
Yeah, he wrote the Scofield Bible.
The Scofield Bible. That was created. That was the beginning of Judeo-Christianity. But in reality, there is no Jewish Christianity. There is not. That does not exist. That is a made-up belief, made-up term. The reality also is that they took stories from these other books, from other cultures, going back to the Persians, and then that goes back to the Babylonians, the Assyrians, of course, the Hittites, and it just goes on and on and on. They were in captivity, folks, for hundreds of years. That's where they learned to. There was no written language. They don't have cuneiform tablets. The Jewish people had none of that. They were very warlike and destructive people, and so they were able to overcome their enemies. They also had something called the Ark of the Covenant, which we should probably talk about that at some point, because I believe it was a small arms nuke. And you know where it came from? Take a guess. Who do you think, where do you think that they got that nuke from? That ability. That was an ancient relic, even in their day. But time is a loop. And at one time, before the earth fell down into darkness, at that time it fell into darkness, antediluvian, after the deluge, whatever, it doesn't matter. That whole era was just dark. Those weapons were left here by either ultra-terrestrial, interdimensional, or extraterrestrial sources. And that weapon was given to them by their God, Yahweh. But Yahweh, and this is the text, folks. This is not me talking. This is the text. He answered to someone else named Il or El. He was the main God. And Yahweh was one of 12 that served on a council known as the Elohim. And he was in charge of that region. And he needed people to populate that region. And he had some sort of moralistic view, because he wanted to get rid of the people that were there because they were wicked, right? That's the story. So he brought the Hebron from Egypt into that region to populate it and get rid of the remnants of the what? Nephilim. Because when Joshua and Caleb go into, they send their spies, they come back and they said, these are giants. This is after the flood, right? They said, we're like grasshoppers to these people. We can't fight these people. No, we can fight these people because we have these horns and we use them to knock down the walls of Jericho. They did all these things with vibration. They were taught these things. They used the Ark of the Covenant. It was a weapon. It was weaponized. And it was something that was given to them. Imagine a very primitive people living on an island. The world has come to an end. the world as we know it. Civilization has fallen, right? But they find something. They find a crate. Let's say small arms. Let's say machine guns. And they figured out how to use these. A crate of M16s or AK-47s, the conventional weapons that were and are used by either NATO or Warsaw Pact, whatever. Let's just say that they use those weapons and they figure out, hey, let's go to the next island and see what's there. The people are living primitive. They're like naked and afraid over there. You know, they're doing whatever, except without camera crews and people up their butt. No pun intended. They're like, hey, look what we can do. Bang, 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 bang. We took over this one. Let's just go to the next one. Let's just do another one. Let's just keep going and let's see how far we can go with these weapons that we were given by the gods or God or whatever. That's what they did. They literally had a super weapon, a powerful weapon that they claim, they say in their text that was given to them by God or a God. We don't really know for sure because this is just what their priesthood said. And they built a whole narrative around it. Right? But a lot of what the Old Testament and the Tanakh, which is their Jewish oral tradition, which was written in the 660s BC or thereabouts, and it coincides with them returning from captivity to the Persians. So Cyrus the Great says, "Hey, go ahead and leave. We don't want you here or whatever." They always claim that they're being nice and being told to let go. Bye. No, they were kicked out because there was a bunch of problems. Because, like I said, they were very warlike people. They go back to the land of Canaan where they came from because that's kind of the Persians controlled that whole region. And they said, go back there. Why? Because really and truly, there was really nothing there. And so they were very quarrelsome people. And they figured, hey, if we keep them there in that little area of nothing, maybe they'll behave. The Romans did the same thing. They're like, just stay there. Don't, you know. And so they go back. And then they start this, writing their history. So, of course, they're going to say, hey, this is our history. God attacked Egypt and gave us this. God did this and God did that. When in reality, it may be that, or it may be that they wrote that and they were just strong enough and warlike enough to take over the other people's regions. Now, I'm not criticizing them for that. Hell, I'm part Cossack. Go look at what my people did. I mean, you want to talk about, they wiped out all the Slovaks in the region where they were at. They were like basically a Viking people that just showed up in a region and said, we like it here. I think we're going to be staying here. And Sven, I don't know if you see, but these people with the round heads is kind of just in the way. Yeah, you're right. Maybe we should take an axe and just remove them, get them gone so we can kind of just take over. This land you can grow things that you can't in the place where we come from. Yeah, I think Odin said we should do this. Yeah, Odin definitely said that. They drink a few more L's. Yeah, to hell was this. We're going to do what Loki said and just murder them all. Yeah. And then the next thing you know, they're like, hey, we're from this region. We belong here. Blah, 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 blah. Yeah, BS. You didn't. You came from somewhere else because your DNA doesn't match anybody else's around you. It simply happens. It happens. The Comanches, at any given time, they said that most that there might have been were 35,000 of them. Yet they seemed to feel the need to have 480 miles of territory. Not square miles, 480 miles from the tip to the top. They were like, hey, it was like thousands of square miles of crap that they thought that just, hey, this belongs to us. They're like, yeah, but you're not really using it all. Yeah, but it belongs to us. And that's also in my blood. So I'm not criticizing people who go off and conquer and destroy and take over, because then I would have to deal with my own heritage and my own blood. And I have a lot of that. So I would be like, hey, my people kind of did the same thing. And then I got Spaniard. So yeah, they did it too on a bigger scale than the Cossacks or the Comanches. They were pretty damn ruthless. So I'm not one to sit here and say, hey, you're wrong for that. But everybody writes their own history. What has happened, though, is that there is a Jewish history and a Christian history, and they really don't coincide. Christian history should begin with Christ. And when you go farther back and you start calling it Abrahamic and all that, and the Muslims are real big on that. They're like, Abrahamic. They're just all about that, They even dance to it. They're like, have you seen the videos where they dance around? I'm joking. It's Timmy Trumpet. Have you seen it? It's hilarious. Anyways, they take it very serious. And in fact, halal butchering, which I think is exceedingly cruel, but they do the exact same thing that the kosher butchering do. I'm not going to get into what it is. I don't agree with it. I come from a school where you just go and you take care of the animal. You don't debase it and make it bleed to death. You just take care of it and then you eat it. I don't agree with it. I don't think that a true and loving God told you to do any of those things. I don't. I do not believe that. And I never will. And you're not going to convince me. There was somebody that got smarmy one time and they said, you on your deathbed, you're going to have to. I said, I am not going to have to because I'm not going to feel any of that you're talking about. It's not going to happen. Because I've found the vibration. I've found where you're supposed to be. Doesn't mean that I'm always there, folks, because I get angry. I have emotion. And emotion is important too. Because if you're just very analytical and you don't, you can't convey things. Now, can you imagine all the things that I talk about with a Ben Stein voice? And I'm just like, at that time, the Israelites had taken over the land of Canaan. They had a weapon. It was called the Ark. Who is going to want to listen to that? There's no emotion being conveyed there. It's just the knowledge, right? So emotion is important, but emotion can't dominate. Because when that dominates, then you are not thinking correctly. And unfortunately, with religious people, they are very, 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 very big on emotion. Okay. And I'm talking some of the people we've had to deal with. They're like snake handling. Thank you, Lord, for keeping my mind clean. I don't want to know anything. This is these people. They don't want to know anything. Everything is the spirit, the spirit, the spirit, the spirit. But then when you talk about it, they don't want to talk about it. And I'm telling you, that is just as dangerous as these academic, robotic, parameter putting on atheists. And with these kinds of people, we are never going to get to the bottom of things. It's not going to happen. You are not going to find your way. So that's my issue. Jordan Cogburn says, Ben Shapiro is going to pay you a visit and take you to the Wailing Well. Go ahead. Whatever. I won't go to Jerusalem because it is an evil city. How many people would say that? Because Muslims and Jews will want to unalive you for saying that it is an evil city. And Christians too. Some Christians. You know why? Because Jesus said so. Jesus even commanded his brother James to flee Jerusalem, for it is full of archons. Archons being the parents of demons. Why would he say that? Jesus doesn't talk very highly of it. He says there will be a new kingdom of Jerusalem. The only reason something needs to be made anew is why? Because the old needs to be done away with, right? Why would you make a new bathroom in your house from the old one? Well, because there's some issues with it, right? So Jerusalem had some serious issues. All you got to do is look at what happened after Jesus died, look, and then was resurrected. Look at the Crusades. There was some serious problems there. There were some things that were happening that needed to change. And Jesus said that. He was like, you'd be better off leaving this place. Another thing, Jesus, if you notice in his ministry, Did you ever notice that he doesn't really go into large cities? He doesn't really preach to these large towns in the Levant.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true.
Why do you think that is?
I don't know.
Well, crowded cities tend to be full of people who are about the hustle and bustle of their daily lives, which are very grounded in what?
The physical.
The physical. They don't have time to sit back and listen to you talk, and their life typically is probably going to be just one of just in a work mode, right? They're not going to want to listen to what you have to say. And back in those days, in particular, people that lived in those cities were of a patrician class. If you couldn't afford to live in the city and make a living, because only those that could make a living could afford to live there, you lived where? Out in the outskirts. And what did you do? You probably raised sheep, right? Or goats. That's what you did. So Jesus would go to these little hamlets, these small towns, and he would preach the word like a grassroots movement, and he would avoid these large cities. And when people are in large numbers and large groups crammed together in places, what shows up? I don't know if you would know. Demonic influence. Because demons need large population areas to thrive. They're very parasitic. They're very vampiric. They need to feed on something. So they need these large gatherings, places where, so they swarm these places and then they recreate themselves. They just keep pumping out themselves. They stamp out themselves. They stamp out more of them. You know, we talked about this on the show before about how people that are evil. They do a replication. One guy in particular hated the show. I'm not going to get into it, but he called everybody in the world. He was calling Tokyo. Yeah, tune in to Tokyo. Yeah, Josh Turner. And they're like, no, I understand you. Who are you? You crazy man. They hang up. He's like, well, I'm called China. Let me tell you something. And they're just like, once again, you crazy man. Don't call me. Then he calls Russia. They're like, yes, comrade. No, why? I know no Judge Turner. Who is this? Don't call me. Shut up. You are like wild mad dog. He calls Germany. Yes, why are you calling us? We've already told you. We don't want to fight. Stop with this Josh Turner crap. Then he calls Colombia. They're like, yo, what do you need, man? You need something? Oh, is it Josh Turner again? Keep it calling. See what happened to you. Oh, nobody wants to talk to me. I don't know what the hell's going on. Well, for one thing, they don't know who the hell I am, half of these people, and they don't care. And if they do, their lives are too busy to be worrying about what the hell some guy on some damn YouTube channel is saying. Right? So the point is that you have these people who are trying very hard to replicate themselves, but that is a demonic pattern that is created within them by the archons. They see these beings on them. I had it explained to me like this, that people will actually give birth to these sort of like a cyst. And men can do it too. This is the only way that these men who don't know what gender they are can actually give birth. Yeah, you can give birth from your aura, something that is seated there by a demonic entity, and it will literally grow like a sebaceous cyst on your aura, on your spiritual being, and then pop, a gremlin comes out. But it's a very simplistic way and disgusting way to say it. But yeah, you're pregnant. So like, you're not pregnant. Well, why not? Well, Mayor McCheese, your head is entirely made of hamburger meat. Therefore, you can't give birth. And I'm not for sure about your anatomy, but I think you're a male. Well, that's not very fair. Yes, but you can give birth to a demonic seedling, not unlike a gremlin, a metaphysical being. Well, that's good. I'll do that. Sure you will. You all will because you're sick. Well, that's why I'm here. I can't cure you. So that's kind of, what it is, right? That's what's happening. So these beings, they pop out of these people. Have you ever noticed, like, whether it's a rock concert or a rap concert or whatever, there's always some weird paranormal crap going on now with these places? These demons are all over those people. I would give you some advice if you're listening to the show right now, and people who are going to listen to the replay on this, because, like I said, it was a weird time, so there's not a lot of people in here right now. But don't go to rap concerts. Don't go to rock concerts. Do yourself a favor, and I'm going to tell you this: stay away from those places. Stay away from large gatherings. Not talking about your family and friends. Go to them. Be with them. Don't recluse yourself. Don't go to these rap concerts. Don't go to these rock concerts, and stay the hell out of nightclubs. Dead serious. Don't go to this Austin City Limits. Don't go to this South by South crap festival, whatever. Don't do these things. Don't do it. Because if you are anybody that knows anything, yeah, there you go. Salem Nemesis just said Astro World. Look it up. Exactly. Do not go to these places. Because like Jesus said, Jerusalem is full of archons. Wherever you go, in these large group places, whatever, you're going to have these issues. Jesus avoided those places. He avoided those places. He went to these smaller towns to preach the word because he knew those people were more righteous. They'd be more accepting, and they didn't have archons all over them. I'm serious, folks. And this is what, it really amounts to is you're gambling, you're playing with your soul and where you're going to end up. You need to understand this, folks. Look at these people now when they have these concerts, how they dress and what they come out dressed up as the devil. Lady Goo, Lady Kaka, whatever her name is, she goes out there dressed up as Frazzle Drip. What a disgusting harlot she is. You know what that is, right? I don't want to give too much away, but maybe we go to Rumble. You want to Rumble? I'll go to Rumble, and I'll tell you exactly what Frazzle Drip is. And I'll tell you which one of these sick people, how many of them are, and specifically which ones are doing it. I'm telling you. So, it's up to you guys, but we could do it. We could do Rumble. I got to record for about an hour because I need an episode to come up for Tuesday. I hope everybody enjoyed tonight's episode with Ron. I know I did, and I like talking to him as we're finishing up what we talked about yesterday. Those episodes will not come out this coming week. They'll come out the week after. But yeah. Hey, Prophet Yang. And Yang, you were not the person. You were not the Carlos that I was referring to. That Carlos is a person that he's been doing stuff for a long time. That's not you. I was just putting him on notice, letting him know that I know. And now I know. So, yep. I'm going to run, folks. Just remember, everything that you learn on PRT, it just keeps going. And there's this overarching theme. You'll figure it out eventually. And, we get episodes out there for you on Tuesday. There's a pre-record always. We hit our 300th not too long ago. That was how the show started, was just with those, And then we have an episode on Wednesday, which we just did yesterday, which was about the woman Andrea. Send me your thoughts about that, and give me leave a comment in the comment section about what you think that was. Because I am still not sure. I kind of vacillate back and forth between it being like a dog man pretending to be a Bigfoot pretending to be a dog man, or maybe two beings, or if it was just some sort of like gugwy. I don't know. But it's interesting. I'm gonna listen to that show about the people bringing back their passengers from Skinwalker Ranch. I'm gonna check that out tonight, and I'm gonna see. So Margot says Wolf is exactly right. Though I worked in the clubs when I was young, some of the worst things you could see happen there at large gatherings. Yep. And those are literally like you're giving energy to these dark entities. And so, you know, it is what it is. And we can talk. A lot of people messaged me about the rant last night on the third hour was just a rant about nothing negative. Not one negative comment to me about it, which speaks to who my audience is. So, you know, I am not a Republican though, because I despise the Bushes. I despise almost all of their candidates. I don't care about that. So don't get it twisted and think that because I don't like the left that I'm a Republican, because I'm not. I am on the right for sure. The left is just a perverted form of what should be right. You understand that? There's right and wrong. So there's a right. So they veered off from that and said, we're going to be the left. That's what it is. So they developed something that is literally the left-handed path. Go look at Baphomet lifting up his left hand. Go look at it. That's the left. So if you identify with the left, and I know witches, straight up witches, and they're like, I'm on the left-hand path. And they vote that left-hand path. So I am not on the left-hand path, but there are these fake people who pretend to be on the right, and they're really on the left. What's the guy with the eye patch who plays like he's a pirate?
Dan Crenshaw.
He's a dickhead. That guy.
Yeah.
Okay, so he's over there like, I think. Shut up, you rhino, you little piglet. Okay, nobody cares. I was a Navy SEAL, so that makes me special. Yeah. Sure, it does. But how do we really know what you did? Were you just carrying water bottles for them, or what did you do? I mean, we really don't know. These people are such liars, and they build these fake narratives around themselves. For all I know, he could have been eating spaghetti, and he poked his eye out with a fork. I was knee deep in Al Qaeda's blood. I don't believe you, and I'll tell you why. Because if you were, you wouldn't come back and act like you do, and you wouldn't be crying and acting a fool. Unless they're lying in your pockets. Right? For sure. So anyway, you got that kind of stuff going on. And then you got these other idiots that are on the right, pretending to be on the right, like McConnell and Graham and all these other, they're douchebags. They're absolute douchebags. And to me, the Bush families, right up there with the Clintons, don't throw the Clintons and do not throw the Bushes in there. The left loves to do that. They'll be like, no, the Clintons were good, but the Bushes were bad. They were bad. And then the right does the same thing. They're like, no. Clintons are horrible, but the Bushes they was good guys. No. First of all, they were in bed with one another. And they were both evil as hell. I'm telling you. But you could get into a whole lot of stuff. We could get into it on Rumble. I'll let you guys know after I'm done with this recording, and we'll see where we're at. Okay? But thank you for listening. Thank you for tuning in on our not our usual night, which is a Thursday. And thank you for checking out the show. And we had Ron on, and Ron Morehead, he's an OG. And check out the Sierra Sounds. Go to ronmorehead.com, buy his books. I'm going to get an order of books, and I'm going to do some freebies. I'm going to throw them in there with the Patreon, and then we're going to do some giveaways. We're always doing giveaways. So anyways, folks, thank you for tuning in. We had a great time, and I will see you possibly later. If not, then I'll definitely see you tomorrow. Good night.